Welcome to another episode of Catholicism and Coffee. I'm Stephen Gasinski.
I'm Beth Kaczynski.
And we talk about Catholic Church, all things Catholic, Catholicism, theology, saints, Mary, whatever else we can think of regarding Catholicism, and enjoy some great brews while we do it. Today we're going to be talking about a great saint, the first great saint, St. Leo the Great. And yes, it is actually true, he was the first to be named with the moniker the Great. Now, we've had a few other the Greats along the way, including the one who's quoted on your
Pope
copy.
St. John Paul II, also known as John Paul the Great.
Yeah, which was actually first said by Benedict XVI when he was elected Pope after John Paul's death. He actually said he was the Great, and that has actually continued. But St. Leo actually set the precedent. Now, St. Leo was not only a great pope, he was actually a doctor of the church. He helped solidify a lot of Catholic theology along the way.
So he was a pretty early pope in the 400s, I believe, and he did not have a super long reign compared to others, especially John Paul the Great. He was pope for, I think, about 20 years.
Give or take, yeah. He was elected pope unanimously, which is very unusual, following the death of Pope Sixtus III around 440 AD, and he was pope until his death around 461 AD. Now, we're not sure exactly when he was born, and November the 10th is his feast day, which is the date of his death in 461. So, what's so great about the Pope? Well, one thing, he was considered one of the best administrative popes. Now, he wasn't just strictly a paper pusher, mind you. He was a great theologian and a negotiator. He helped negotiate a lot of different things between warring factions. In fact, when Sixtus III during the end of his papacy, he sent Leo to deal with a couple of Romans who were really at each other's throats and could have caused a war. And he sent him to help negotiate a peace between the two of them. And while he was out there, unfortunately, Pope Sixtus III died, and then he was recalled to Rome.
It's a very different kind of job that a pope had back then compared to now, getting so involved with the political conflicts.
Yeah, he still gets in. The popes do get involved in political conflicts, but they're not as much of a force, whereas they're more directly involved.
Yeah, you can just imagine one of the early popes out on a battlefield.
That happened.
Yep.
Leo was actually on the battlefield.
Oh wow.
He dealt with a rather nasty character named Attila the Hun.
Ooh, yeah.
He actually managed to negotiate with Attila that he wouldn't destroy Rome through peacekeeping, because Rome was not well prepared for that possible attack.
I guess the popes didn't have all the security measures that the popes today have.
Yeah, he didn't have the Pope-mobile either. We've been lucky to get a horse and carriage. So, Leo himself was highly respected for his love for the Lord, intelligence and persuasive nature. And as I said earlier, he was pretty gifted in negotiations. I mean, if you can negotiate with Attila the Hun, you're in both pretty good. And he also negotiated not just only in the political realm or secular realm, he was also a gifted theologian. So, do you have any other questions about St. Leo the Great?
I think you explained well why he is so great. I think if you negotiate with Attila the Hun, I think you were pretty great.
Okay. Yeah. Well, also, not only did he deal with the secular world, as I said, he dealt with theological stuff, including he rooted out a number of heresies that were affecting the Western Church at the time. Among them were Pelagianism, which involved denying of original sin that we got from our first father, Adam. He put that to bed pretty quickly. Failing to understand the necessity of God's grace, that was also in Pelagianism. because we need God's grace for salvation, obviously. But their argument was, well, if there's no original sin, then we don't really need God's grace, which was a load of bunk. And St. Leo dealt with that. Another one he also dealt with was Manichaeism. I can't pronounce things. Which viewed everything material as evil. I don't think we could survive that. I couldn't drink coffee.
Oh no, that's a horrible thought. Well, I'm glad Pope Leo corrected them there.
Yeah. Also, we couldn't have beer, which was originally invented by a Catholic monk, so. Or ale, or anything like that. I'd cry.
No sweet tea.
Can we not? So, and also, this has been an ongoing issue in the church's history about Jesus being both divine and human at the same time. And he was 100% of both, 100% human, 100% divine. And there would be some people ending up going into extremes. Fortunately, St. Leo the Great actually dealt with this as well. As you can tell, he dealt with, if you can imagine, he's dealing with all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Attacking the church from all sides, from within, from without. And he worked very hard to hold the church together despite all of these issues. Speaking of internal issues, something we should bring back. There was, not the internal issues, because we have plenty of those, but it was his policy that if any bishop or clergy who didn't combat these various heresies, or in fact help spread them, he'd excommunicate them and defrock them. So we need some more excommunications until morale improves. He was firm. Now, he wasn't a complete dictator, even a benevolent dictator. He was actually quite compassionate, but he was firm. And he did it out of love. He was able to communicate to even the highest of theologians. He and St. Thomas Aquinas are probably having a pint and chatting about various things in heaven right now, which I'd love to be in on that conversation, even though I'd probably understand only a third of it. And he also managed to communicate to, the peasant, and he was very much about educating people on what they needed to know. Hopefully he's blessing our ministry here. Here's to hoping.
Yeah. Definitely makes a lot of sense why he is named a doctor of the church, because you think about the Thomas Aquinas and the Augustines who had all these writings and all these teachings, and then Pope Leo, we have him to thank for so much of what we believe.
It's true. And also, as an administrator, he was also overseeing a lot of the investigations and such into heresies and other administrative issues, including clergy who weren't doing their job.
Yeah. Probably the church was a much different place after the end of his pontificate.
He left a pretty big shadow after his death in 431, and hence why he is labeled the Great. Yeah. There aren't that many greats in the pantheon of the saints. Now there are some who we think they should be labeled the Great, but
yeah, that's a lot to do in only 20 years.
But he was doing this long before he was pope.
Oh yeah.
Even as a deacon, he actually jumped from deacon to pope, if my memory serves. But he was going around and doing all this stuff as a deacon. So there are a lot of documents that he wrote, and there's actually one. This is kind of cool. We actually hear one at Christmas time.
Wow.
He has one of his homilies that he wrote for Christmas. I believe he was pope at the time. And we hear one of his sermons around Christmas time. So definitely look into a lot of his stuff that he wrote, various things. As I said, he was a very astute theologian. He knew all kinds of stuff. And he took his studies and his Catholicism and his love for Jesus very seriously, in also serving man. While as an administrator, he was also taking care of the poor and helping others. And he was not just up in some ivory tower that you could never get to him. He was out in the streets talking to people and getting stuff taken care of. He was a guy who got stuff done, and I long for days when we can get popes who will actually get stuff done and not get quelled up in political correctness or anything like that. It would have been interesting to see back in those days, and I wonder what he'll say about today's pontificate. I don't know.
Yep. That's something we'll learn when we get to heaven, I suppose.
I hope so. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to close with an excerpt from one of his Christmas sermons.
I think that is a wonderful idea.
Okay. He's a little wordy, but it's worth it. Preserving, therefore, the substance of both natures, uniting them in one person, lowliness is assumed by majesty, infirmity by power, morality by mortality by immortality. And to pay the debt of our present state, an invoidable nature is united to our suffering one. And true God and true man are welded into the unity of one Lord, so that as we needed for our healing one and the same mediator of God and men might by the one suffer death and by the other rise again from the dead. Rightly then did this birth of our salvation bring no taint of corruption to the virginal integrity, for the birth of truth was the defense of virginity. Well, we hope we were able to give you some insight into St. Leo the Great. I hope that you were able to find something very useful from him. And in the meantime...
Well, you mentioned Christmas. That reminds me of what comes before.
Yeah.
Check out our Advent devotional. You can find it on Amazon. Make Ready the Way. It's a great little tool for the Advent season as we prepare for Christmas and to hopefully hear from St. Leo the Great.
Yeah. And definitely look up his other writings. He has a ton of them out there. And this book is actually very helpful for you to meditate on. And there's some of our previous videos, we kind of go into it a little bit more. We may go do a special and kind of go into that.
I mean, it's no Pope St. Leo the Great's writings, but it's okay for the modern age.
It'll do.
Written by someone who is obviously not a pope and never will be.
Nope. In the meantime, be bold, be brave, be courageous. We'll be praying for you. Please pray for us so we can keep this going. God bless.
St. Pope Leo the Great,
Pray for us.